Hi, welcome to Diamond Custom Paint Shop. In this episode, we're going to be doing a little bit more on my sign. In my last video, we added the custom lettering. In this video, we're going to go ahead and add the spray gun skull that's in my emblem, my logo, if you will, to the side now. That's going to be the next step. That's going to be in this video. And then after that, I'll have one more video left to do after that, where I'm going to do some gold leafing on this ring right here going around it. So yeah, so go ahead and check out where we did the lettering in my last video. And like I said, we're going to do that skull right here. What we're going to use to do the skull, we're going to use a little bit of a silver, you know, obviously some black, and that's going to be about it for the colors to get that. And we're going to use a couple of different types of stencils, a vinyl stencil probably first, and then yeah, and we'll just kind of go from there, use what we need to do to get that painted on there. So stay tuned. We'll get set up, kind of overhead view, and we'll get going on the skull. Okay, as you can see, the first thing I have down there is some transfer tape. I'll kind of go over that in a minute here. The benefits of using that white transfer tape. But the first things I'm doing here is I'm covering up that lettering I did, because this isn't clear coated, so that lettering is exposed with that paint. So I don't want to put tape or that transfer tape directly on my lettering. So I'm using just pieces of paper to cover up that lettering to protect it from this whole process that we're going to be doing. This the white transfer tape you see I'm touching now is really good. It's low tack, you know, it sticks down. The nice thing I like about using this transfer tape, you know, you can draw on it and then you can cut out your shapes, you know, put them off to the side and then reuse them again, as you'll see we'll do in this video, you know, to do your things. Okay, now I'm gonna get my skull. Now that I have the transfer tape down, I'm gonna get my skull that I'm gonna put down, and I'm just cutting out just the silhouette of the skull, and then I'll lay that on top of the transfer tape, and we'll kind of register that with some black paint out of an airbrush. We'll register that skull onto that transfer tape, and then that'll allow us to then, you know, cut out where we want to on that transfer tape. Okay, so now I'm you know, positioning this silhouette of the skull, getting it right where I want it on the, you know, over top of that transfer tape. And then once we get into position, I'm going to tape this down onto the transfer tape so it doesn't shift around. So when I'm spraying, you know, with the black the airbrush on there. Okay, now I'm go ahead and I'm masking up the rest of the project. So when I'm spraying anything after this, it doesn't get on that white, that bright white that's in the background, to limit any overspray on that, because you will get it. You don't think you will, you think you can contain it, but you know what'll happen is you'll pull it off there and you'll have a line where a piece of paper was or something, or one of your tape lines. So better caution and just tape everything off now. So then now we can just here register this with the black. I think I'm using candy black at this point. You know, make, you know, really light. You don't need it very heavy on there, just real light, so you can kind of see where your design is, kind of going around. And then after we register this onto the transfer paper, then we can go ahead and we'll cut this, you know, piece of paper out of there, and then kind of mask off, make sure there's no gaps in that masking. And that'll be the last use of this stencil of the, you know, outline of the skull. Okay, now we're gonna take, you know, that piece we cut out from the outline, you know, making the outline, and we're just going to cut out. And here I'm kind of starting to do the eyes, but really in this segment, we're just going to cut out where the spray gun and the skull are separate, because we're going to do the spray gun portion first, and then we'll do the work on the actual skull part afterwards. So here we're just taking out, all the portions I want to highlights of where the actual spray gun is. So then after we did that, we put it back on there. We re-register those lines so we can see the separations. Now I'm just using a pencil to kind of put in some last, markings where I want to cut out. As you can see, we took the paper off, remasking where that paper was at, just to make sure we don't get any blow throughs. And then now I'm just going to cut out everywhere there's going to be the silver. So we're doing the top, part of the cup, and then we'll do, the handle and the front nozzle part coming out of the mouth. Just a note too, in this video, I didn't capture all of doing the details of the skull, but mainly the gist of this video is to kind of show you how to separate, the two items, doing the spray gun first with masking, and then doing the skull second. So kind of showing you that technique is mainly what this video is about. You can watch my other videos where I do detailed skulls. Okay, and then here, we first sprayed with that black and then put the silver over top of it. Yeah, I usually spray the black first to make the silver pop a little better. And then now, as you'll see in this video, I use mostly just masking tape and fine line tape to do a lot of my masking off for a lot of this stuff. Masking tape works really well for doing kind of basic designs, as you'll see in this. And here I'm just doing like the, shadowing ridge part along the top of the cap. And I'm just using a straight piece of masking tape, and then just aiming for that edge of the masking tape to give me some nice lines with some fading off of the lines. And I'm doing some freehand. A lot of times I'll do freehands with shadows. Here doing one of the knobs, again, just using some 1/8 inch masking tape to get my lines, and going in with a little bit of freehand work. As you can see, and when you do it this way, it's really easy to do a lot of these effects. I call it the magic, where you're just kind of, smoke and mirrors too is what I call it, where using a lot of masking to make your job a lot easier and minimizes a lot of your freehand work, which is really nice. But as you can see, I do use quite a bit of freehand too here to do shadowing and shading. And here I'm just using candy black. I use candy black for this kind of stuff because it gives you a little lighter for your shadings and stuff, makes it a lot easier to get your shading right, because you can kind of build up your shades. You start light and just keep adding light until you get what you want. I'm using Custom Takami by Awada for this, but you could use any airbrush for this, because as you can tell, you're just mainly hitting edges of your masking, and stencils is all you're really doing, and a little bit of shading. But any of this shading you're seeing, you're really only just shading off of those edges, so it's really not even that technical of freehand. You're just basically shading off your masked edges, or your stencil edges. Here I'm just going back and forth, putting that stencil back on there. I made that paper stencil to get some edges. Here I'm practicing how to do a rivet, make sure I get it how I want it to look. So I'm doing a couple practices off to the side, which is a really good idea to get in the habit of doing, if you're not sure how you're going to do it or how it's going to look, So I got it how I wanted it, and then went ahead and did it on the real thing after I, knew the process. So a little bit of practice, doing things or experimenting to get it how you want it, and then go ahead and do it on your project. Here again, as you can see, just using that 1/4 inch masking tape to make some edges really easy. And you can see I used the pencil to kind of draw out a design, and I'm going back in with some fine line and some masking to kind of get my edges, and then just shading off those edges. Okay, now I'm getting ready to be able to airbrush the little knurls on the air cap of the spray gun. So I'm just spacing out some fine line tape, some 1/16 inch there, taping it off. Now spray this all real light over, and then I'll take it all off. Then I'll tape it off again to get my shadowing on it. That just gave us the lines, and there I just did the shadowing. And just remember a kind of a tip there. Anytime you're doing shadowing on a curve piece, you want to make your shadowing curved, as you can see how I did there and how I did on the other knobs. As long as you make your shadowing curved, then it's going to give it the effect that it is a curved piece. If you just did a straight shadow, it'd have a hard time fooling the eyeball to say, hey, that's a knob, or a curled piece. So okay, now we're just going to go ahead and work on the top. We're going to basically fade in the white into the silver cap. So we just made a little design there. And here I'm going in with sandpaper to sand down that edge that we created, putting the silver on. So it's a nice and smooth transition, because we're just going to continue the white up into that cap with that edge we made with the transfer paper. That's what's nice with this transfer paper is you can go stick it on, draw a design on there, and cut it out. It's really nice. Then we'll go ahead and keep putting light coats of white on until it fades in there. You can't see the silver anymore, and it's faded in. And we're going to add some texture and stuff in there to kind of make sure it's covered up really good. So, and then after this, I'm going to go in with some candy black again and hit the edges, top edges there. Just do a nice soft shadow or edging on these on the top there. Give it some effect with some cracking and stuff coming down into the skull. And here we're using a texture stencil just to give the skull a little texture coming down off of that. And then now we'll start working on the skull here. As you can see, earlier, I think I talked over it, but we used those pieces that we were doing with the spray gun. We put them back on to cover up those silver pieces, and that allows us to not have to worry about getting any of this overspray back on the silver. And so that's what's nice about the tack paper too. It's kind of a low tack, so you can put it over top of your paint. One recommendation I would say to do is I always wait at least 10 minutes and kind of make sure some air is blowing on it with a little fan or something. That's what I always do to make sure that base coat is nice and dry before you go trying to put any tape on top of it or tie. Otherwise, you could risk the issue of pulling up your paint you just put down, which isn't fun, because then it creates an edge and then you kind of have to sand it down a little bit. So, and now we're just adding a lot of detail to the skull, using our stencil that we use. You just cut out the highlighted areas of like the teeth and the eyes and stuff, and then you kind of keep going back and forth. Okay, we're pretty much done. Like I said, we're going to unmask it now. Like I said, a lot of this didn't get captured of me actually doing the skull, but I mainly just wanted to show how you can separate the two using masking and do that process. But here we'll unmask everything, and you'll be able to see the final result. But yeah, you use that paper stencil quite a bit when you're doing the actual skull, because you'll kind of keep putting it back on there, like to give you your sharp edges of your eyes and your teeth, just the main areas like that. So it's really handy to do. And as you can see, our lettering was protected by that. We didn't have to tape over any of our lettering that wasn't clear coated over. I tried to get as much done as I could without doing a clear coat session. Kind of saves you on clear coat if you can. Sometimes you'll come across where it's just not worth the risk and you just clear coat it anyways, but and here I had a good plan of how to protect that. But I would never have taped on something that big, put tape on that lettering, because the risk of pulling it up would have been too great. I would have just clear coated over the whole thing and then did the skull after that. So you kind of think of a clear coat layer as a protective layer, kind of a start over, where you can erase things on it. You know, if stuff happens, you can just take some reducer and wipe it off, or, you know, clean it off like that, so you don't have to worry about getting over spray on other areas, because you can just wipe it off. But in this instance, I, was trying to save some clear coat, save some time. So as long as you have a good plan in place to protect it, then you're good to go. So you can see we pulled everything off except for the actual transfer tape, and we'll kind of, take our time a little bit to pull it away from the edges. Still being careful, because during the whole process you did build up a good edge. After you sprayed the silver on, you got the black shading on there, you have a good edge on those. So you gotta still be careful pulling this transfer tape off, that you don't pull onto your project and peel it up from an edge. So we'll kind of zoom in here while I do this process. This angle, it all looks kind of the same color, but it is, we do have the white and the silver, the white skull, and of course with the black shading, and then the silver handle. And you'll be able to see that here in a little bit at the end, when I kind of, after it's clear coated and I show you and kind of show you at a different angle, you can tell the difference. But as you can see, I'm kind of just moving slow, making sure I'm kind of pulling everything away from that edge. And one thing I also recommend too when you're doing this is just run your finger over your project too, to make sure you don't have any pieces there you left behind, pieces of tape. I've done it where I've accidentally left, some fine line tape along the edge somewhere, because you can't see it because it gets painted over. But yeah, just run your finger across your project, make sure you don't feel any raised edges. You left a piece of tape or something, then you end up clear coating over it, and it's too late at that point. So all right, well, here's the finished project. Next, I'll go into my last intro here for you. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section, and I'll get back to you. Okay, well, there's the skull. Let me show you here the finished. Got it all unmasked. Came out pretty good. As you can see, we used... I cut out a stencil. I printed off, the image off my printer. Then I used my X-Acto blade to cut out key points on it. Then we laid down that transfer tape, and I airbrushed over top of that. And then I was able to cut out key areas I wanted to do of the transfer tape. The one thing that's nice about that transfer tape is you can, like when we did the gun part here, we just cut out that area. And then when we switched from the gun to the skull, I actually saved those pieces and put them back on here to cover up the gun area, and then was able to do the skull. So that's pretty nice with transfer paper. So just a little technique. I know this video I fast forward through a lot of it because it did take some time, a couple hours altogether probably to paint this skull. So I had to, fast forward it. You'll see most of it in there, of getting this done. So yeah, it came out pretty good. And then the only thing left I have to do on this is we're going to do some gold leafing, spun gold leafing in this ring right here. And then that'll wrap it up for this sign here. So yeah, so as you can see, came out pretty good. Used some silver and white. I don't know if it really Doesn't really come across on the camera as well, but there we go. You get a little different angle. Yeah, the silver, and then the white of the skull, and then this kind of crackles into the top cup there of the spray gun. So, all right, well, stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to do the gold leafing here. And until then, I'll see you on the next one.